on air. It is Thursday, July 9th, and this is our weekly Backdrop core developer meeting. Before we get into the agenda, I'd like to have everybody go around and introduce yourselves, say where you're from, and if you have something that's not on the agenda you want to share, feel free to go ahead. Greg, you are in the top left again. Would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, hi, my name is Greg. Usually joining from Australia, but now I'm joining from Greece. Joining as per usual to see what's the latest in the issue queue and see how I can help.
Great. Nate, do you want to go next?
I'm Nate Lampton. I'm in Oakland, California, and I don't have anything not on the agenda to discuss today. So, yeah, we'll run through it all. Jen, did you say somebody else? Oh, we can't hear
Jen,
you now.
We can't hear you. But yeah, Luke, maybe you can
I'm Luke McCormick. I'm in San Ramon, California. I'm leading an initiative called the Ready to Wear Initiative. Intent is to have Backdrop easy to use out of the box, and I have a webcam on a baby bird or a nest that's growing in my foyer, and we're monitoring that for exciting developments.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Tim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sorry, I thought I had turned off my camera while I was moving there. I am Tim Erickson. I'm reporting from up near Deerwood, Minnesota. And I have been away for a bit, and over the last week have been trying to get back into the flow here. I don't have any issues I'm advocating for right now, so my goal is to figure out what I want to work on for the next release so that I have things to bug you about in future meetings.
Yay.
That's all.
All right. Next up on the agenda, we have one new community member who's ported the cache exclude module from Drupal 7. DeBond or DeBonda or DeBondi, I don't know. Anyway, new GitHub member who looks like maybe their first community contribution. So I've posted a comment in the queue trying to help guide them through the process of getting that project onto GitHub and into the Backdrop contrib queue. But I did say for faster replies to try Zulip. So if anyone sees this person show up in Zulip asking for help, please help. Also new contributed project updates this week. We have 4 new contributed modules, which is great. We have the big blue button, which I saw people chatting about this past week in Zulip. So great job getting that one out. Menu item visibility, lateral, and node feedback are all also out. I believe lateral is a new theme. So we're getting a bunch of new themes now, which I think is also really great. Yeah, that's exciting. Let's turn it over to Nate to talk about project progress.
Okay. So Backdrop 116.3 is the next bug fix release of Backdrop, and we have a lot of issues that we've been working on to just generally improve the stability of our current release. So one issue that is probably one of the higher priority things is issue 4407, a visual regression in the text format order on the text format settings overview form. This is a regression from 115 that when we redid the UI for editing text formats, we also had this regression in the way that text formats are displayed, that they're out of order when you go and look at the list of them. So issue 4407 still doesn't have any pull request or anything behind it yet. So we need a developer to take a look at that issue and submit a pull request to try to get that fixed. I don't even think that it's a particularly hard issue. I just think that nobody's had time to take a look at it yet. So 4407 needs a pull request. Let's see, next issue we have restore views pager by date, issue 2766. This makes it so that you can sort items and page them by things like month. So you can say previous month and next month in a views pager. And it's been reviewed a couple of times. It might be ready to move to RTBC. Doc Wilmot came in and compared it or applied the core change combined with the contrib calendar module and didn't have any issues with it. I think that there might be some hesitation there that perhaps more testing would be valuable before that gets moved to RTBC. So 2766, we basically need some end user testing confirming that the core patch plus the date contrib, or sorry, calendar contrib module work together correctly. Let's see, speaking of views, we have this big meta issue 3685 for views crossports, pulling in all of the patches that have been applied to the Drupal equivalent version of views. I think that it would still be valuable if we have extra time. Like, these are good issues to simply apply in mass, that you take the Drupal 7 patch, reapply it, and then make a pull request for Backdrop. And we have several versions of views that we need to catch back up to. Just because every now and then we get an issue that's like, hey, I ran into this problem in views, and it's usually already been fixed had we had the cross ports, fully up to date. So that issue is all stubbed out with lots of potential work to be done there. Let's see, next we have PHP CS automated code checks. That's the suggestion here in issue 3213 is that when we file a pull request, we should have it automatically apply linting rules to identify things like if you're using tabs instead of spaces, or where your new lines are, and that sort of thing. So issue 3213 is currently still in discussion mode about ways that we could potentially apply linting to the Backdrop project. Let's see, last we checked this, GitHub released a generic linting tool that they call the Super Linter. It did get PHP support 2 weeks ago, but it's not really very comprehensive. It's just like, does your PHP code have any syntax errors in it? So I think that we want something a little bit more comprehensive than that, because we already know, like, if there's a syntax error, the automated tests aren't going to run. So it's not providing an enormous amount of value there. I do think that if we managed to maybe not hard code an action into the Backdrop core repository, but if it were somehow possible for us to make a generic GitHub action that was like basically Backdrop code linting, so any contrib module could turn on linting by using like a pre-built GitHub action, that would be pretty cool and a nice way to handle things. But anyway, that's basically still kind of in research phase about what's the best way to proceed with that kind of capability to our infrastructure. All right, and lastly, in the 116.3 list of issues for discussion today, we have this certification that we passed, the Linux Foundation Core Initiative Infrastructure, I'm not quite sure what that stands for. It's a qualification that basically you submit your software against a set of security best practices, and then they rate your project for how many best practices you follow as far as delivering your software in a secure manner and having it follow best practices for security in like the storage of keys and the transmission of data and the storage of user data, all of those things. So Jen went through the process of submitting Backdrop through their self-service survey. We came out with a passing score, and I just was on their website and searched for CMS and then sorted by score. And at least of the CMSs that have CMS in their name or description, Backdrop is the highest scoring one, which is kind of cool. Anyway, the discussion that we'd like to have, or I'd like to have here, is that the issue that is currently open, 4464, is about putting the badge that the Linux Foundation created for this certification on the project page of Backdrop, like in the GitHub README. It's also maybe good to extend this to putting it on the website, since it's actually on the website right now on the homepage of backdropcms.org, and just kind of what
One of the requirements for getting that passing score was that as soon as you got a score, you were supposed to put the badge either in your repository or on the homepage. So that's why I put it on the homepage, so I could check the box so that we could get the last point for getting the badge.
Interesting.
But I wasn't sure if it should be on the homepage. That's why I filed the issue to put it on the repository, because I thought it might be a better place to have it be like a developer facing badge rather than like a everyone facing badge.
Right.
But yeah, I'm open to your feedback on that. I feel like we might have discussed badges once before, a very long time ago, and decided not to put them on the GitHub repository for core. But I don't remember what badge that was, or why we made that decision, or if that decision was specifically for that badge, or if it was for all badges in general, or what. So I'm open to the discussion.
If it's security related, it should also show up in the security page, right?
That could be, yeah.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a very good place to put it, because it's relevant to people that are interested in security. You know, if they go to backdropcms.org/security, probably interested in knowing what security updates we've had, what kind of practices we follow. I think that would be a very reasonable place to put it.
Was the requirement that you mentioned earlier, Jen, to put it on the homepage or on your site in general?
My brain says it's the homepage, but since brains are not reliable tools for that, I will check, because I think if we could move it from the homepage to the security page, that would be my preference. But if the requirement is either homepage or repository, then my preference would be for both repository and security page.
So from the marketing side, why do we want to bury it? This seems pretty good. Shouldn't we put the?
I think it will be, nobody knows what it is, I think is the one thing. But I think maybe if we did a better explanation of what it was, it might be something worth promoting. Like, we could write a blog post about it. Like, hey, this is what this is. And then on the block where we put it, we could link to the blog page. That might be enough. But yeah.
Yeah,
Damn it,
I think blog post would be great, because I mean we had to do some work to get this.
I'll write a blog post.
I forgot about it, so I would have mentioned it in the response about the security thing. So maybe I should stick that there as well. You know what?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but my concern is that there are a crap ton of badges available for like putting on your GitHub repository. And I think that it just becomes noise. Like, you know, I'm not sure what value we're really delivering by having a string of badges along the bottom. And I'm sure that there's ones that are more valuable than others. And my comment in the issue is that I'm probably somewhat tainted by the era of like the 90s, where you put the string of badges at the bottom of your website that said like, oh, this site was built with Claire's homepage and is best on Netscape Navigator and on a Macintosh, you know, and it just had this whole string of buttons that down at the bottom that was just like kind of cliche. And I think that's the vibe I'm getting from, you know, like repository buttons in general, is that I see projects that have like 16 buttons along the bottom, and I'm just like,
Makes us look like a Banana Republic dictator with like a million medals
Yeah,
on
yeah,
their
yeah,
uniform.
yeah. That's another good example. But it's funny because like each one of the badges means something, but sometimes I'm just not sure if it's like some kind of campaign to increase backlinks to the provider of the button. You know, like I also have that skepticism there too, and I don't think that's the case for this particular one. But I don't know. I'm just a little wary of them.
Okay. Do we need to create our own badge so we get backlinks?
But on every control project linking back to backedupcms.org.
Yep.
Official. Automatically added.
Yeah. It's like when we have the powered by, where we already do kind of in a way. We have the powered by backdrop block that is enabled out of the box. It's kind of funny that like when we ported that from 777, you remember we got rid of all the images because they used to have actual image badges that were there in the 777 era, or maybe that was even 666 era. Yeah, they're just kind of out of vogue.
Anyway,
so
we leave it with Jen to check if having it at the homepage is a requirement, and then we move it to the security page better.
Yeah, I already put it on the security page. I think it's good to have it there anyway, but if I write a blog post about what this is and why it's exciting, and then we can put a link from that, then I think it's fine on the homepage, as long as people aren't like, what is this weird thing on the homepage? And then I don't have any super strong feeling about it being in the GitHub repository, only that I thought that might have been a better place for it than the homepage without explanation. But so you can like click on the badge and it takes you to the Linux page, but even that like doesn't really say what it is. Like you have to kind of dig around to the FAQ page and be like, oh, what is this thing is the answer. So I think maybe our blog post might be a better tool for that than the badge itself.
That makes sense to me. Yep.
Okay. So if you want to close that issue, Nate, I'm okay with that.
Okay. I might.
And maybe because we had this conversation a long time ago, and I don't remember why or what, we should document somewhere our position on badges. Or do you think it's worth reevaluating every few years when we have something that's relevant, if we think we need to include it or not?
Well, I think that it's possible that a compelling argument can be made, and it just hasn't yet.
Okay.
And
so maybe we'll have this issue in the queue for reference. I think I read your comment on there, and you said pretty much everything you said in this meeting. So we can refer to that in the future if we wonder what happened this time.
Yep.
Okay.
So I don't think a policy should be cemented yet, because it's possible that other badges may have a stronger virtue. It might be justified.
Okay.
So is nobody else going to say it? Our current policy is we don't need no stinking badges.
Nice.
Yeah, I like this idea of it's possible that badges will provide value, but put it like just throwing them all in the README might not be the right solution. You know, that every time a new badge comes up, it's like, well, let's try to find the right place for that. You know, and make a whole badges.md file and just put all your badges in it. Okay. That's what we've got for the 116.3 list. 117 is our next minor version of Backdrop. It'll be coming out September 15th with feature free September 1st. We currently have 2 issues. We have a new one added as of this week for emphasis in that release. And first one is one, Jen, that you're advocating for, issue 4410, using an admin theme for the login forms. Can you give us a status update on that issue? No updates?
So I think where we're at right now is that it works great, except for that if you make the change and then visit a page, it doesn't show the change right away because the caches need to be cleared. So my next step was to force a cache clear all after the setting was changed. And I still need to do that, but otherwise
Okay.
it's good. It's close.
You know, I'm not sure if we want to get into this because it's not on the agenda. But Gregory, I was looking at a related issue to this that is in the RTBC queue right now. That is
The
when
other
you select it,
checkbox.
yeah, the adding another checkbox for the default theme. That
Yeah, so I saw your message. Yeah, I saw the response. Yeah. So the issue that you mentioned with the field set jumping up and down, that's a known issue. It happens with anything that goes at the bottom of the page.
Mhm.
But yeah, so my only concern there is that I can file let me rephrase everything, just get my thoughts into things. Would you like me to file a new request and repurpose and retitle that issue, or close that issue and or keep it open until and raise a separate so we can test both things? And the other thing is that if we remove it completely, people now have an easy way to just click one thing and say, I don't care, just use the same thing always. Whereas now you would have to select a specific administration theme and then select another one option, and then Zen's issue with a login adds another checkbox there. So there's like 3 options that go away with a single click that now will be on people's faces all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm okay. I'm okay with filing a separate pull request to also see, because I think that the recommendation will simplify the code. So that in itself might be a compelling reason to do it. But yeah.
Yeah, I think a separate pull request, but in the same issue. So
Okay.
it's like a different alternative, because I think that we're going to do one or the other and not both, you know, because
Okay, yeah.
they're alternatives to each other. And
Okay, cool.
all of them are about that terminology of use default theme, you know, as an option in the select list. So yeah.
So I see what you and Mike said, but this is not use the default, but always use whatever is set as a default. So how do you communicate that? And now you're forcing people, like previously they had an option that no matter which theme they changed to be the admin theme, sorry, the default theme, that would always be used for the admin theme.
Mm-hmm.
Now they have to do 2 things: select the default, change the default theme, and update the admin theme, and most likely those checkboxes as well. The one for the content editing and the one for the login screen.
Yep, and I think that's fine.
Okay. Yeah. No. I think you mentioned it. It's fine. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
because the way it is right now, out of the box, we already say that 7 is the administration theme, and there's different theme basis as your front end. And so if you wanted to make basis be used for both of them, you'd have to change 2 options right now anyway. You'd have to first change your default theme to something else, and then you'd have to go down and you'd have to change the administration theme from 7 to use the default theme, when you also could just as easily say, you know, use the current theme. It's only if you're changing the theme multiple times that this even becomes an issue. And I just think it's too weird of an edge. It's an edge of an edge,
Yeah.
it feels like.
Yeah, look, both of these options simplify things, so I'm all for it. Would you prefer that the update hook actually, if that option is set in D7, goes and finds out what the theme is there, and instead of adding that 0 or 1 or whatever, selects that specific theme?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right,
Yep.
cool. Yeah,
So
yeah,
the
can do
entire
that.
option for use default theme just goes away, and you just
Okay.
explicitly select, this is my admin theme, this is my front end theme.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, eventually, I think we have another issue about this whole like idea of default theme, like in the first place, like why is it called default theme? Or
No, the issue that you're thinking now, and this came to mind as soon as you spoke the words that you were saying previously, is the one about removing the notion of disabled themes.
Right.
So yes, you would have a list of themes that are available in your system, and then you would have to pick an admin theme and a default theme, and that's it. In other words, and maybe not call it default, but then again, front end seems to take key thing.
Anyway, separate thing.
Yes. Separate thing.
Okay, anyway, but all of this ties back into the admin theme for the login form, Gens issue 4410, because it adds another checkbox right there in the administration theme settings. And if we kept this default theme thing, when you check the box for default theme or you select default theme, those other options will go away because they're redundant.
Yep.
But anyway, discussion had.
Yeah,
Okay, so the new issue that we have for this week is that Doc Wilmot has picked up an issue to advocate, issue 3750. And I haven't fully wrapped my head around it yet, but the title of the issue is Custom Contexts for Layouts. And from what I've read, my understanding is that this would allow contexts to be created and stored in config, like config files. So I think the idea is that right now we have contexts in layouts for like you're on a node or you're on a user page, and it makes it so that you can place fields from a node inside of the layout. And I think what this is about is making it so that there can be user-defined contexts that aren't necessarily this is on this node or on any node or on any user. But I don't exactly understand the full details of it yet.
So this is a copy of the custom context that were available for panels, where you could, for example, be on a landing page that was created with layouts that doesn't have any context, and you could say, make the context for node 14 available on this page, and then you can add all of the fields from node 14 to a page that wouldn't normally have had that context. So you can add a context to an existing page.
I see. Yeah. So that means that you could pull it out of nowhere, but you'd have to provide, unlike the current context handling, which says get a parameter from the URL, like get the node ID and then load the context for that. You would have to then provide or say what mechanism you want to use to provide the parameter into a context.
So in panels, there was a setting on the panel configuration where you would say what type of context and then what parameter it was. So you could say it's a node ID and then pass in 14, and it would load a node using its node handler to get the context off of it and provide that.
Yeah, in panels, couldn't you, or page manager, couldn't you also tell it the node is in the third parameter or something like that from the URL?
If it was an argument, that was an option. So like you could say it's node ID, pull from arg3, or you could say like I'm on a page for node 12 and I want you to add a term context. The term ID is in the tags field. So it would let you chain contexts together where you're on a node context and you're adding the term context from a related term.
Yeah, there's a related issue to that Doc Wilmot is saying that this issue blocks relationships.
Yeah.
And so that would enable that kind of deep chaining.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the issue 3750 seems like it's going to add a lot of capability, or maybe just groundwork for more capability to layouts, which is highly appreciated and continues to make layouts like, one of the central features of Backdrop. So that issue currently needs review. It has a pull request that's working and put together, and yeah, more discussion and more eyeballs would be appreciated on issue 3750.
I'd like to take a look at that one. Another thing I'd like to just throw out there is that this week I did a proof of concept of how to build things in Drupal 8, and I used panels and was really disappointed that panels did not have any of this context support in Drupal 8, even though it had it in Drupal 7. So I think if we can get this context support that panels had in Drupal 7 into core and Backdrop, it'll make Backdrop a much more powerful layout tool than Drupal 8 has available to it at the moment. And I would imagine everyone in Drupal land is working on getting these features added back into panels that were there in Drupal 7. But I think it's going to be much easier for us to get there than for them. So that excites me in terms of the kinds of power we'll have to do cool things to our websites.
Excites me too.
Okay, well, those are the issues that we have advocates for and that are in the 117 milestone, which is still pretty light. We have some updates here on initiatives. Telemetry, the update or the initiative to make it so that we can start collecting usage information about the ways in which people are using Backdrop, not just the modules that they have installed. Jeff posted an update here saying TLDR, only mental / planning progress, nothing tangible. And then that there's an update in issue 285, the big meta issue for telemetry. Okay. Jen, I saw you posted a comment on the issue. Is there anything more that you have to add on telemetry?
No, I just asked if what actionable items the rest of us could do. Jeff posted an update saying what he was working on, but I didn't really understand what he was working on. So I asked him to explain what an ES server is and why we need one.
Elasticsearch.
And why we need one.
So we said that we would collect that data and present it into a form that people can see it, like charts, or have it searchable. And my understanding from Jeff's comments is that all that, as he said, all that screams Elasticsearch.
Okay.
So yeah, based on the requirements, based on the requirements that we said.
So I feel like how to make this data publicly available and display it should be like the last thing on our list. Like, I think we need to figure out what we're collecting, how we're collecting it, where we're storing it before we figure out how it gets displayed to people. But I wonder if his solution isn't also tied up in all of that other stuff. Like, maybe he's thinking we don't keep control of our own data, but we give it to some third party. And so it would be good to kind of get to the bottom of that to see like if there's like an Elasticsearch provider or something he wants to use instead. So I don't know. That would be good. But then also my follow-up question was like, what can the rest of us do? Like while he's still working on this, I noticed that I think it was you jumped in, Doc Wilma jumped in, and I wanted to know like we have this list of things we want to collect from sites. While he's working on the infrastructure to figure out like how we're managing the data, would it be helpful to have the rest of us write like some kind of plugin or hook or something that would collect that information like during cron, or like how can we be helpful to him while he's doing other things? So I don't know if he has a plan for that yet or not, but that was all I added. But how can we help? What's going on and how can we help?
Yep.
Yeah, we also have anything that has an advocate question mark on here. I am thinking about, I have a lot of little tiny things that have been bothering me lately in my work on Backdrop. And I was thinking about, I've just advocated for this one thing that I'm hoping will get done quickly, but I'm thinking about making like a meta list of like, here's like 15 little tiny things I want to clean up and run it by you guys and be like, are these good core candidates for the next release or not? And then I'm not sure that none of those would be really exciting enough for like a blog post or something, but they would really make me happy if we got them done. And I think they'd be small enough that it'd be easy to take on in this amount of time before code freeze. So that's okay with you guys. That's my next plan.
Yeah, I have a bunch of those issues as well. tiny things, and it's like, should I do it? Should I not?
A handful of mine are your issues, Gregory. I'm like, yes, this always bothers me. I'm gonna fix this.
Yeah.
So you're saying you'd bring this list to like a future meeting? Or you're
Yeah,
ready?
I was thinking about like creating a meta issue of like,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not even a meta issue, just like a Google Doc or something where it's like, here's the things that are bothering me the most in my day-to-day work on Backdrop, and would these be like solutions that other people would want to see in core if their usability cleanups would be like, can we do this in 1.x? Like there's some like menu rearranging stuff. And
Right.
Yeah. So
One such interesting that I filed recently was the removal of the wait field from menu edit item forms. That's 4466, and they are also removing it from Drupal because presenting a wait field
without
which
any
has limited
context.
options as well. Yeah, there's no value in the edit form at all. So
I've
there's
actually
there's
had
obviously
editors open like 5 tabs and then they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm like, oh
Nah.
gosh, that sounds so terrible.
yes. So we have other issues raised for replacing that menu selection in the node edit form, at least with some sort of menu tree, which is something more like once it's out of the way, the stupid wait thing, I think it's the next step to pursue. But that would be a bigger sort of like goal. But from what I've read in the respective d.org issue, they've done some usability testings, and yeah, people get confused. It's not usable, so they're removing it. And reading through that issue made sense to me as well. So it's, I imagine you're speaking about those tiny things, tiny fixes
Yeah.
here and there, right? Yeah, yeah. And it's usually like 20 to 50 lines of code tops, something like that.
Something like that, you just like delete. That's the best.
Unless I'm completely misunderstanding what you're suggesting, I can't imagine anybody objecting to you bringing such a list to this kind of thing.
Well, so I was just basically saying it because I'm gonna want help. So I'll be like, here are 10 things. And you'll be like, don't do these 5. And I'll be like, okay.
So thanks, Nate, for also commenting. I see the comment on the pull request with regards to moving that his admin theme there. Would you like me to file a separate issue to do that move and then hold on to that, or do it all in that single issue?
You can do it all in that one, I would say.
Okay.
Because,
yeah, okay.
because you're going to have to remove code from the theme listings page because it's going to be redundant with the change
Okay.
to list themes. So I would put it all together.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll do that. That's one of the other annoying things, but it's not in the UI. It's the DX thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the functions that are calling I think it's called list themes, and it's called system list separate for the projects, so we don't have anything for layouts. So these kind of annoyances as well in some functions. Yeah, there's some long-lasting ones like. Yeah, good. All good things.
Yeah, eventually we're going to get that themes page. Like our theme settings are going to be totally awesome.
One change at a time.
Yeah, one tiny change at a time.
It's because we're not adding features that often, as fast.
Yeah, there's a lot of
I think.
iteration and a little
Yeah.
less like throwing everything
Resistance.
out.
Rewriting.
Yeah.
It's great. I think this is how it should be. Like
Yeah.
baby steps all the time.
Okay, well, we have another initiative, Luke's update on the Ready to Wear initiative. Luke, do you have anything to report this week?
I do. For one, for the first time in several weeks, I'm not driving while I'm trying to give the update. So that's a step in the right direction. So I'm boldly like doing stuff and then open to suggestions and corrections later on. But I guess a lot of it's wrapped in. I put into the agenda. I created a sandbox site on Pantheon for the initiative. I was able actually to create all three, including the live site, which I think they used to not let you do. So I don't. They're probably not delighted to have me like publicizing a sandbox site, and so I may have to, move it somewhere. But the idea is
Fine. The only thing with a sandbox site is that you can't Google it. It's blocked from it's blocked from search engine indexing, but I think it's fine for you to publicize it.
yeah. All right. Well, until there's a reason not to, I'll just leave it like that. And basically the approach that I'm taking to just try to power through to MVP is to create a site that demos themes. I installed the content theme module that lets you apply a different theme to each content type. And then I'm just creating a content type for each theme and applying it to that so that we can create, I can create, people can create sample pages in that content type, and it will show up in that theme, allowing a relatively simple interface of being able to click through and be like, oh, what does that one look like? What does that one look like? What does that one look like? At the moment, I'm just putting in the presentation ready themes, the backdrop themes I can find. There's a small list. I've churned through, a few of them. As a way to kind of start discussion, like, okay, like how close, I mean, this is literally the low hanging fruit. Once we're able to kind of quickly A/B compare different themes, try to get a sense for how close this is to where we can push things out. I anticipated getting 2/3 of the way there, just roughly pulling out what I think. I think we'll find that we've got things that are built to cover part of it, and we'll need to assemble or port or somehow create one or two more themes that just look different but still ready to go, so that people have the ability to click different themes and tell that something happened. You don't want it to look the same. And along the way, by creating a sample site, I want to unearth the other things that come into play, layouts and content and various other pieces of information that we need to know to really understand this topic area, which might bleed into how-to docs or menus or other things like that, or bundling things. And there's a bunch of tangential related issues that have popped up as part of this. But my main update is just to kind of point to, here's a site where I kind of want to encapsulate the current thinking of the project. I'll continue to funnel results back to forums and continue to engage in other places where things show up in Zulip and the issue queue and the meetings and things like that, as it may well be. The other thing that I sort of want to arbitrarily announce / propose is I want to have a weekly meeting for anybody who's interested, which might just be me. And I want to do that Wednesday evening Pacific time. So, and I want to throw that out. I'll put it on Zulip as well, just to try to find times that aren't noon Pacific time to see how that feels for those scattered around the globe. Greg, how would that work for you? What time does that end up?
Any time would work for me, especially starting next week. I mean, I'm on 3-week leave, so I should be okay. Just get a sense of what others like, what time is good for others, and I'll be able to join, I guess.
Okay, so
Yeah, if you add a few suggestions for times, days and times in the Zulip thing, I think people will chime in.
that's probably a better approach. So that
Yeah.
I'm going to throw that in as one suggestion that trying to imagine just my schedule, like what's the furthest away from this time that could still work for me, just to see if that pulls in people who haven't been participating in the noon meetings because for whatever reason it just doesn't work for them.
This time of the day in Europe is broadly speaking any time from 9-10 p.m. to midnight as it is now. So
Right.
Might work for others, might not.
So
And it's
there's
early in
that.
the morning. Sorry, and it's early in the morning in Australia. It's like 7 in the morning.
Okay, so that's kind of the summary. Those two things. There's a site and there's a time. I'm going to do some sprinting on it tomorrow. I don't anticipate that with no announcement or anything that it'll be anybody but me. But if anybody is curious, I'll be working on it tomorrow afternoon.
Thanks, Luke.
Okay.
Um,
Thanks, Luke.
by the way, Nate or Jen, the demo sandboxes throws an error saying project is over quota.
Okay. I'll take a look. I think it might be good to, we bump into that not irregularly, which is kind of cool in a way because it means we have a lot of sandboxes.
Last time we ran into it, it was because our base profile got deleted. So every copy was huge instead of being tiny.
Yeah, well, not this time. We have 261 active previews.
Could
Is
we
that
get rid of
Tugboat?
that by decreasing the lifetime?
Yeah, it looks like there's some that are open from 3 days ago, and that shouldn't still be open. I think that they're supposed to only be 24 hours. Oh yeah,
24
3
hours,
weeks
yeah.
ago. Yeah, it's possible that they just aren't deleting like they're supposed to. Yeah, that looks like
Are
it's the
sites
case.
supposed to do that on cron, or is that an internal Tugboat setting where they're supposed to delete themselves?
It is, well, that's a good question.
I was fussing with the settings on our site last time we had a problem, so I'm worried I might have broken that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's a setting inside of Tugboat to automatically delete previews. We use a cron job that backdropcms.org keeps track of the IDs of the Tugboat previews that are created, and then on cron jobs it loops through the ones that are old and deletes them. And so it's possible that that deletion code might not be cleaning things up.
I checked it. It does still say 1 day on our site. So
Okay.
I think I turned that off when I was debugging the problem, but I might have turned it back on. It's on now.
Okay, I'll look into it, and in the short term, we can just delete some of these sandboxes that are old. Although it's really tedious. They really need bulk.
If you ping Ben Chabet and say, can you delete everything more than 24 hours, he can do it with one command.
That doesn't seem like that's the right answer.
The last time I asked him, is there a faster way to delete all of these? And he said, just tell me what you want deleted. And I was like, this is the faster way.
Well, if we keep asking, then eventually they'll be like, maybe we should have a bulk delete option. Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the heads up. Is there anything else you guys would like to discuss? No? Okay. Well, that's good because we're really an hour already. So yeah, well, thank you guys again for joining the meeting, and everybody out there that watches these. Glad to have you guys watching. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you on the internet.
See ya.
Bye.